So now I'd like to welcome our final speaker, who actually might have the best credentials we've seen today. Mr. Craig Blanford got some bad news about 7 years ago, the diagnosis of bladder cancer. He did have the good fortune to find Dr. Ian Thompson at the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. So Craig will tell you that story and how BCG, extensively studied by SWOG, changed his life. Now Craig is 49 years old and lives with his wife Amy in a town just north of San Antonio, along with their 3 children, 19-year-old Austin, 16-year-old Skylar, and 13-year-old Dylan. For a living, he rents cranes for a construction company, but his passions are his family and baseball, even though he's not apparently a Cubs fan. In any case, a former college player, he helps coach 15 teams of boys, ranging from ages 8 to 18, who play under the Washington National System. Please help me welcome cancer survivor Craig Blanford.
Thank you. Well, you know you're not the smartest guy in the room when you look at all your associates you're standing here in front of them. They all have MD, MS, and RN, and I don't have anything at the end of my name, so I was going to put BCS, which was going to be bladder cancer survivor. Thank you. 2010, my wife and I were volunteering down at the San Antonio Rodeo. And on a Saturday night, we had been drinking, as I usually do, enjoying some beverages, and went to the restroom and had noticed that I had a slight tinge of blood in my urine. In doing this, I had this probably about 2 to 3 weeks prior, noticing that possibly I just had too many sodas and I had another infection. I didn't want to start another row of antibiotics, so at that point in time I decided I needed to cut back. 20 minutes later I found myself going back to the restroom again, and at this time the slight tinge had turned into what looked like pure blood. Being in the men's restroom, it wasn't where I thought I should seek a second opinion from the guy standing next to me. So I thought at this point in time I need to leave and go tell my wife. After telling Amy my situation, she agreed and drove me to our local hospital. I was seen at the ER and being examined and making sure I did not have any internal bleeding, that I was sent home and to see my local urologist. That following Monday, Amy and I went to the urologist, and I figured I had a bad infection again, that sodas were no longer going to be part of my diet. And after the examination, he informed me that I had a tumor in my bladder about the size of my fist. He said that I would need to have surgery to move the tumor and to have a biopsy of it to see if it was cancerous. My wife and I were shocked. The doctor scheduled us for surgery, and a week and a half later, we went to the outpatient clinic where the procedure was performed. After the surgery, the doctor showed Amy the pictures of the tumor and said I would need another procedure. He told us that to come to his office to the following Friday, and if he would have the pathology report, and we would discuss the findings. On the following Friday, we returned to the urologist's office, and he told us it was stage 3 bladder cancer, and that we would need to remove my bladder, prostate, and lymph nodes. And I would have a catheter and a bag for quite a while. We would have to decide, or later on we would have to decide if we would have a rebuilt bladder, but that was going to be down the roads a ways. We asked if he was sure that the bladder needed to be removed, and he told us that if we didn't have the bladder removed, the cancer would go outside to the muscle wall and to the other internal organs, and I would have 8 months to live. He stressed that this is the only plan of action. He told us he was going on vacation and he would schedule my surgery in 6 weeks to have my bladder removed. Needless to say, Amy and I left the office of much concern what had all happened, and felt like without my bladder, with my bladder and with my internal organs, I would be gone. That 8 months I would be gone from there. We were scared. We went home and we talked with the doctor, talked to our kids about what the doctor has said, and prepared for the sudden change in our lives. We assured them that we would be okay and God had a plan for us. We then went to work and talked to my employer, as I was going to need more time off. I had vacation and sick time, but I was going to need more time off for the events that were about to be prepared for. When we got home, Amy called the insurance company to see what we would cover in our stage 3 bladder cancer and what we could expect on our end of financially. They basically told her that the bladder, prostate, and lymph node removal procedure would be covered, less our deductible of 20%, but the reconstruction of a new bladder would not be covered at all. We did not have the money for this. It was for the projected costs, so it looked like a life with a bag was inevitable for me. I was devastated. How was I going to work? I worked in the construction field. How was I going to be with my family? A very active life that I wanted to be. At that point in time, I looked to my wife and said that if that was the case, that I was determined to let the cancer be for what it is. I did not want to have my life slowed down like that, and I decided to do what was not inevitable for me to do. My loving wife, in fact, said no. That wasn't acceptable to her. Thank you. After searching, she discovered that there was a urology department in Vanderbilt University, and that they had been rebuilding bladders, and speaking to them about this situation, that she thought she might want to go that direction. Upon asking her boss, Dr. Thomas Slaga, a cancer research scientist at the University of Texas there in San Antonio, for the time off to take me to Vanderbilt, he asked Amy if he would mind to be calling an old friend of his for a second opinion. We welcomed this help, and a few hours later, we had an appointment with Dr. Ian Thompson at the Mark Center in San Antonio. The appointment was on a Good Friday, and that was a day that changed my life. I thought to myself, who has patients on Good Friday, and who's going to take a new patient on Good Friday? It was remarkable. Dr. Thompson and I and my wife met, and after he finished clinics for the day, and talked about the situation. At first, I was very resistant to getting another opinion. After speaking with Dr. Thompson, he reassured me that he was not going to let stage 3 bladder cancer sit for 6 weeks. In fact, he was adamant that I needed another procedure, and it needed to do immediately. He said our chances are slim, but he needed to see this for his own eyes, and we were going to look to see what the options were. He reassured us he was qualified for the job, but he saw that we were not sure. We told him that our thoughts to the head of Vanderbilt University, where we had discussed that he had another colleague there, which was his son, that he had worked with. We also looked at going to MD Anderson in Houston, and he said, I have another colleague there that I'd be more than happy to approve also that I had trained. That being said, and in my baseball terms, I was thinking, why do I need a relief pitcher when I have my ace pitcher standing in front of me? He told us, he said he felt he could possibly help us in another option, that he would help us, and that we would discuss the options of possibly a clinical trial. Amy and I left his office, and we walked into the parking garage, and Amy turned to me, and she said that she thought to let him do the procedure and after giving us another opinion. I agreed, and so we called to his office, and at that time told him that we wished to have the procedure. Dr. Thompson had already set the procedure up for me. The next Tuesday at 5 a.m., he had me set up, and we were off to the surgical room. He was wasting no time, and we were thankful. So on that Tuesday, I did show up, reluctant, but I was drugged there. He sent me home with a catheter, and I was not happy about that at all. But said that to get back in touch with us, and he would have a pathology report more on what he had discovered. The next Friday, while I was at work, Dr. Thompson called Amy and told her that before he went to the clinics, he would share the good news. He felt we had a chance to save the bladder and wanted us to come see him the next day to talk options. We were so excited. He used the word options. So we met with him the next day. When Dr. Thompson told us about the clinical trial, he felt I would be a good candidate for. He was really encouraging really asked me to give it a shot. He said he would personally be doing all the treatments and would be checking for any changes along the way, and if it was not working, we could always go back to the original options of the bladder, removing the bladder and the prostate and the lymph nodes. I was very excited about this option that allowed me not to have to live with a bag, but to be active with my children and the rest of my life. So we rolled the dice, and through the clinical trial, I've won. My BCG treatments began right away after the 12 weeks, right away. They're every 12 weeks for 3 weeks, occurring every 7 days, or as often Dr. Thompson would deem needed. The treatment consisted of putting the BC treatment directly into the bladder through a catheter, and after that I was required to hold the treatment for a couple of hours where the virus would address the cancerous cells in the lining of my bladder, allowing basically the burning off of the lining, and then I would urinate it. At this point of urination, it was a new song called The Burning Ring of Fire. It was nothing fun, but I can assure you, learning to endure the procedure and adapt to the 72 hours of side effects that were uncomfortable and challenging, all while working, was well worth it. But when the day came after 5 years of treatment that Dr. Thompson said that the bladder was all clear, no treatments were needed at this time, and for me to go home and play with my kids, live my life, and every 3 to 6 months we would check. I felt like I'd won the lottery. Dr. Thompson's and the clinical trial had worked. I was still here providing for my family and watching over them. I thank the Lord and Savior for my life every day. The treatments that I had realized, for the treatments that I could become the man that I am today. 6 years ago, at age 42, my life seemed over. My options were not that great at the time. But due to Dr. Thompson, my loving wife, I am the man I am in front of you. I have a son that I've seen graduate from high school, go off to play college ball, a 13-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old daughter that will grow and become caregivers for animals and people. I can truly say to you that Dr. Thompson, you're a family friend, my hero. To my wife, thank you for everything. You've been there, supported me, and I appreciate it. She never missed an appointment. She was with me through the hard times and the bad times, and I truly appreciate it. I thank you, the doctors, the scientists, everybody here that turn around and put in your work day in and day out, from myself to the cancer patients, to the families that have cancer. You are heroes. We honor you. You honor me to be here to speak in front of you, but we honor you. The clinical trials that SWOG has developed allow us to endure the life that we have, to grow and become the people that we wish to be. It's difficult when a person knows that they hear the word cancer. They shut down mentally. It is up to you, the physicians, to communicate to them that there are options. We have clinical trials that can give them a life. Again, I honor each and every one of you. And in closing, I'd like to say thank you for listening to my story. Again, I would not be here if it personally was without the SWOG clinical trial and all you scientists. My prayer is that others diagnosed with cancer will be given the chance to think outside the box and have a life that they can live fully. Thank you.